Won't you take me back to Tennessee?
The award-winning Tennessee Wildcast is on the air with the latest info about hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. This episode is brought to you by GSM Outdoors, whose vision is to preserve the sportsman's legacy, fuel innovation, and enable the next generation of outdoor enthusiasts. Think outside. That's where you'll find us. Now, make welcome your host, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee Wildcast. We're glad you're tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We got an awesome show lined up for you today. It's not a crappie show. It's a crappie show. And we got Mr. Travis Scott with us today. He's the Assistant Chief of Fisheries, and we're going to be talking about some great things happening in the crappie world.
Yeah, that's right. And you beat me to that little joke there.
You could pull it in somewhere else.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You know, it kind of depends on what part of the country you're from, whether you say crappie or crappie, you know. So, we'll mention both of them today.
Yeah.
It's all good news.
All
a good
good
thing about it.
All good.
That's great. Hey, how about a radio station?
I think it's a good time for it.
WTBG in Brownsville, brownsvilleradio.com. We are on at 12:30 p.m. Monday through Friday, and the whole show runs during the weekend. So anyway, we appreciate our radio partners, all of them, and especially WTBG right there in Brownsville, Tennessee.
Yeah. That's a fun one, WTBG.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It rolls off the tongue. Yeah, we appreciate our radio partners, everybody out there watching on YouTube and Carbon TV, and everybody who subscribes through that platform, but also through the podcasting platforms. Keep coming back, keep subscribing, get in there and comment, engage with us. That's how you win some of the prizes that we've been giving away.
That's right. Year. Get your name in the hat so we can get some of those giveaways.
Yeah, so it's important to do that. So anyway, thank you all, and thanks to Travis for being here today. It's I got a fun conversation, I think, for today. We've had a great crappie production year in 2024, and it's time to talk about it. We're halfway through 2025 now, and
you talk about somebody who comes prepared. Mm-hmm. Travis has brought data, and fish guys are really good about that too. They're all about the numbers. You know, you talk about fry and fingerlings and stocking schedules, and oh man, they got it together.
Certainly, we try to provide as accurate information as we can to make sure, and we want to try to educate the public on what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he even brought a cookbook, so we're going to dive into that today.
I told him that yesterday in the hall. I said, "Hey, Travis, how about some recipes?" Oh yeah, okay, we'll do that too.
So, Travis, tell the folks a little bit about yourself. I know you've been on the show multiple times, but I mean, you got a pretty cool story. You started your career in Alaska, right? Doing some work in Alaska, but now you're in Tennessee.
Yeah. After graduating college, I went to school here in Tennessee. I went and got a job at a salmon hatchery in Alaska and worked up there for a couple of seasons and learning about cold water hatchery productions. Mm-hmm. We're producing, of course, they're close relatives of trout. And I spent a lot of my time here in Tennessee. First, as I came back to Tennessee to work at TVA, doing some stream surveys throughout their service area, mostly in Tennessee, but in other states as well. And then was fortunate enough to get hired by TWRA as a technician on a streams crew in 1999 and began my career with them then, and worked a lot of different locations. Technically, I guess I've been in every region in the state, and I've worked at several trout hatcheries, Tellico and Flintville Hatchery. Had a brief stint as a wildlife officer in Shelby County, and then made it back to the streams crew for a bit in Region 3, and recently promoted to the assistant chief. So very excited.
Yeah.
It's been a great career.
Yeah, I was going to say, a great career, good experience. You've had your hands in a lot of things and got a really good understanding of what's going on in the fisheries world, for sure.
Yeah, that's the joke. I've held every position in fisheries, from technician through manager 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What better experience, though, to be in the position you're in now, to understand how it all works, you know?
It does help. Broad, diverse, had experience, and of course, I'd worked with a lot of our fisheries professionals across the state throughout my career. So
right.
Yeah.
It's been a good experience.
Definitely. Well, today, like I said earlier, all about crappie, but let's talk about, and it's a record production year. Back in 2024 was a record production year. So I first wanted to dive into hatcheries, just kind of do an overview of hatchery production, maybe some of the goals of our hatcheries and things like that, and then we'll dive into the success we've had.
Yeah.
Right. We use hatcheries to help produce fish as a management tool. Fish stocking is a management tool that we use for a variety of reasons. Like our Florida largemouth bass program, we're trying to influence the genetics of those bass populations in the lakes where we feel that it can be productive. Something like a crappie, we may be trying to boost populations where natural reproduction is not successful. There may be a year based on water quality or water levels that we lose an entire year class, and we try to supplement that. And we get that information through some fall trap net surveys that our crews do on our reservoirs to see what type of natural production we had in those reservoirs. Some of our tributary reservoirs have issues. There are huge drawdowns that TVA conducts on some of these reservoirs. So in the spring, those water levels may shoot up and the crappie may come up to spawn, but TVA needs to restore that flood capacity, capacity to hold water, so they'll drop those lakes back down quickly, and sometimes that can interfere with that reproduction because it's already started. And so in those instances, we try to go back and stock crappie in those reservoirs that need it. And we have a formula to rank those reservoirs based on the amount of use, the target for crappie, the reproduction that we can, and then our routine surveys, the electrofishing surveys that we conduct. So we use all of those to factor in to determine where the fish should go and what stocking rates we can use and try to produce those fish. And typically in our warm water hatcheries, we have been averaging around 980,000, close to 1 million crappie a year production fingerlings. Now these are small fish, but in 2024 we went up to about 1.9 million.
Wow.
It was a huge boost. And we're in the middle of that process right now in crappie production in 25. That we collect brood fish in the spring. They go out and electrofish, bring those fish into our warm water hatcheries. And typically what we had done was take those brood fish and put them into ponds that we had tubs full of the appropriate gravel substrate for them to spawn in.
Okay.
And we would let the fish do that naturally in those tubs, just spawn naturally. And there could be a lot of variability depending on weather in those ponds of when they would spawn. And you might have some fish spawn sooner than others, and those fish that spawned first, as those fish got bigger, they were able to maybe feed on the freshly hatched or the eggs that were laid from the other fish. And so it was always kind of, you never knew exactly what you were going to get from that process until June, when you would draw the ponds down so you could spread those fish out to other ponds for grow out. And so what we did in 24, we began transitioning to what we call mat spawning, where the fish were held inside, the brood fish were held inside in tanks with these woven fiber mats in the bottom. They're about 18-inch square mats.
Okay.
And the crappie would spawn on those mats, and then we could take the mats and put them in a pond for the eggs to hatch. And so then we could have more control over the timing. All of the mats that are spawned at the same time could go in the same pond, and so there's not going to be
no predation on
exactly.
those things. Yeah,
and of course, the brood fish would feed on their offspring as well. I mean, they're piscivorous. That's what they eat, and even in the natural environment, that's what they're going to eat on other fish, and it may be their own. So, but with that mat spawning, it has greatly improved that production. And this year we still have some in ponds, like our typical way. We're still evaluating to make sure that but it's looking really good.
Yeah.
And so we shifted more of that production to the mat spawning this year, and more than likely in coming years we may go completely 100% to the mat spawning.
Are other states doing this? Is this something that you've learned from other states, or is this something we've kind of taken?
Sure, it's something that's other states utilize as well, and of course we work with other states closely on hatchery production, and we attend conferences. Our biologists and the hatchery managers attend conferences and exchange ideas, and always working to improve those techniques in our production. So,
well, and it's very similar to the how you spawn largemouth, right? And
right.
The techniques and stuff.
That's what a lot of the largemouth bass production is on mat spawning now. Yeah, and that's what we utilize at our Humboldt facility where they keep the Florida largemouth bass.
Yeah,
they spawn them on mats.
It's been a while back, but we did a show about that.
And for those just listening that aren't seeing the visual, the mats kind of remind me of like a fibrous, almost like an air conditioning filter. Yeah.
Yes.
And, a couple inches thick and
that woven fiber gives spaces for the eggs to kind of settle in and amongst.
I had a note here. How do we determine what we will produce in our hatcheries? Just kind of going back to just the hatchery production, but what we're producing and where we're going to put them, things like that.
Those 7 warm water hatchery facilities produce a wide variety of fish, including walleye, the Florida bass we talked about, bluegill, red ear sunfish, striped bass, hybrid striped bass, sauger, saugeye, channel catfish, blue catfish, and of course the black crappie.
Yeah.
So a lot of different species, but it's around timing. We start in the spring, really late winter, February. They're going to be collecting. February, early March, they'll be collecting walleye brood and bringing those into the hatcheries, and they'll spawn them by hand, and those eggs will percolate in jars till they hatch, and then they're stocked in ponds.
Okay.
And then you can't grow them long. Same thing, fish eat fish, and so if you leave those fry in the pond too long, you'll end up with maybe a handful of really nice walleye, but that doesn't accomplish our stocking goals.
Right.
We're stocking thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of fish into a body of water to help boost those populations. And so after a couple of months, those walleye are harvested and stocked, and then those ponds are refilled. And in some instances, they'll go back. Right now, they're doing some striped bass, and we're in the process of stocking those.
Okay.
But they may keep some of those ponds empty and bringing those brood black crappie in. And that's one of the advantages of this mat spawning is it gives us more time on those ponds prior to bringing those mats in, a little more time maybe for striped bass, or allow us to maybe go from double cropping, we call it, where we're raising 2 species in a pond, to triple cropping. We may be able to do 3 different species in one pond.
Yeah.
So that greatly increased the production of fish for stocking. But the crappie, of course, we collect those in the spring, and they'll spawn. And those mats are put in the ponds sometime in the April time frame. In June, we're going to be spreading those out. But we'll hold those crappie in those ponds until October, November, and stock them out anywhere from 1 to 3 inches in size is when they go out. So they're in there for the longest period of time. Walleye are short term. And those ponds, those crappie, when they're young like that, they're feeding on plankton in the water. So those ponds are fertilized to boost that plankton rate. And make sure that they're feeding well and growing. And we do some supplemental feeding with a commercial feed, too, in some locations to help get those fish up to a bigger size before stocking.
Yeah. Man, the guys and gals are busy. I mean, you think about transitioning to different fish every so often, and then just the collection. You got crews everywhere, working on these bodies of water, collecting and then bringing them in. And it's amazing the work y'all do.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of work. We've got 7 facilities across the state. We got Humboldt Hatchery out in West Tennessee, managed by Tom Pratt. Springfield Hatchery here in our region 2, near Springfield, managed by Joe Austin. Normandy Hatchery, which is our newest facility, but it's showing its age now. It was built in the 90s.
Okay,
it just keeps growing out there.
It does keep growing, and all of our facilities we've been adding on to, and working to improve to make sure we can maintain and increase our production.
Yeah.
But Nathan Singer manages our Normandy hatchery. And then in Region 3, we only have one hatchery. It's at 2 locations. They're both on WMA, Sugar Creek WMA and Hiwassee WMA. We have some ponds at both of those locations where Jacob Mowry has done a nice job helping increase our production there. And historically, they were mainly maybe doing just crappie there, but they've expanded now, and we're doing some walleye production there and some more bluegill, and so working to increase production at that facility as well. When we get over to East Tennessee, we've got Eagle Bend Hatchery in Clinton, managed by Chris Morton, and then Morristown Hatchery in Morristown by Jessica Holbrook. So,
Yeah, awesome.
and of course, all their staff are quite knowledgeable and a lot of experience, and do a nice job producing these fish for our reservoirs and our anglers.
Yeah, we need to get out to more of these locations
I know.
and do some episodes of them. I know we had Chris on not too long ago, I guess kind of back at the end of the year last year. Anyway, he had a lot of good stuff to say and about Eagle Bend, I guess it is right there. But yeah, so these warm water hatcheries do a lot of work.
They sure do.
And then you got the cold water, which we haven't mentioned today, but like the trout facilities and things, they're hard at it as well.
Oh, sure.
We've touched on the record year, maybe highlight some of the work that those guys did, to just produce this record number. It's and I think, like you said, this year's coming maybe even better.
We're hoping, yeah. Well, of course, the mat spawning was greatly effective in increasing, but just being able to adapt to the weather conditions that are present that year, and that can be a big factor of what the weather is doing and how we are able to adjust and account for that weather. But just keeping track of your fish, making sure you're keeping those ponds fertilized. They'll do Secchi readings to make sure it's a disc you put in the water that you can tell that you've got a good plankton bloom. You want to keep that. They're going to monitor temperatures. They're going to monitor dissolved oxygen levels, and it may mean adding some aeration to those ponds, but they're constantly checking those ponds every day and making sure the conditions are exactly what they need to be to ensure good survivability and growth on those fish for stocking.
And these facilities, it's not like you can at 4:30 you clock out and you just walk away, is it? I mean, it's a 24/7 deal.
It can be, certainly, especially during some of the spawnings on the walleye and the striper. A lot of times there's people checking on those eggs all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got some alarms and systems in place, and it may mean there's a storm that rolls through and knocks the power out, and you've got to run down and check on everything and make sure generators came on like they should. So yeah, and most of our facilities have some type of living quarters on site, so there's someone there, and sure, it could be that middle of the night you're having to get up and go check on some things for sure.
Yeah. Well, and we've not mentioned it, but the predators, sometimes, predator issues of birds and things that,
right.
It's like you said, it's around the clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like everything loves to eat fish. So and that's why we brought the recipes. And it is. Our warm water hatcheries, of course, they're large ponds, and so we do get, the herons, cormorants. We get just a variety of birds that come in, but you can also get otters or other predators that come in, raccoons that are getting into the facilities that might be targeting our brood fish or some of the larger fish we have on site. So yeah, certainly have to stay on top of that.
Are turtles predators to fish too?
They can be. They wouldn't be as bad as some of the other. The birds especially can be devastating on some of our fish species in those ponds.
Yeah.
But we work on some exclusion devices and some techniques, just some loud noise bangers to try to keep those scared away from those ponds.
The managers out there with pots and pans just walking around.
We've tried a variety of things over the years. One of the most unique. Well, I guess everybody's seen them. They've got the blow up at the car dealerships.
Oh yeah, or the furniture stores.
Furniture stores where it's this blow up that'll pop up in the air and wave around.
Flop around.
Yeah, and so it's just something essentially a big scarecrow.
Yeah, that's great
with motion.
Yeah, we should get some of those branded. Have like a logo on them, and they're out there looking wildlife officers, technicians, or whatever. That'd be fun. Okay, all right. So we touched on some of the key players and the hatcheries and the managers. Most all of those hatcheries were doing this production, right? It was a statewide effort, correct?
Yes. Okay. Yes, and not all hatcheries would necessarily have would mat spawn. We might move those mat spawn. Those mats from one facility to another into their ponds for grow out. But I think most of those facilities handled at least some portion of that crappie production.
So
and stocking.
Everybody had their important role, whether you were, spawning them or you
Team
were,
effort.
feeding them, protecting them, keeping them alive to get them to where they're going to be released.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and of course stocking. It's all hands on deck. As those fish are ready to go out, and you're moving. I think we had around 14 different reservoirs that we were moving fish to, and so. You've got to have all of those hatchery trucks and all those drivers. They're on the road moving those fish, sometimes long distances, to get them to where we've decided that they need to go. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Well, can you touch on a little bit about that? Like, I know you said 14 or so different reservoirs, and maybe you can't mention them all, but where did some of these fish go, and maybe some of the numbers and that kind of thing?
Right. Like I said earlier, we're looking at places where natural reproduction needs some help. It's not meeting the needs of the anglers there, and so we've got some reservoirs. So like our best catch rates are like from Kentucky Reservoir and Chickamauga. We don't stock those with crappie. That's natural reproduction is providing those fisheries, which is great.
That's good to know. Yeah,
but there's places like Center Hill or Dale Hollow where we have these large drawdowns, and we can see those fluctuations in those yearly populations. And so, Normandy, a reservoir, Timms Ford Reservoir, Center Hill, Dale Hollow, Cherokee Reservoir, Watts Bar, Boone, South Holston, Norris, Watauga, Chilhowie, Tellico. So all of those were in Region 4, the last ones I were mentioning, and those are large storage reservoirs where there's large fluctuations in water level every year, and that can have some big impacts on those populations. And so that's where those were all the reservoirs that we stocked last year with those fish, and that's typically those are the ones typically year after year that we need to stock with fish.
Yeah.
Of course, we monitor that in case there's some changes elsewhere that we might need to address. But
extreme changes like the Hurricane Helene coming in and water increase there, so that could play factors too.
Which we've been fortunate. Our surveys that we've done on those reservoirs and our streams are showing that those fish handled that event really well, and
that's great.
We're not expecting any huge impacts to those fisheries there, so we're pleased about that. Yeah,
it's amazing how nature can take care of itself.
They can. They have adapted over the years to be able. And I know that was an extreme event, but I'm sure those fish as a population have experienced similar events throughout their course of evolution. So
yeah, definitely. So we talked about that. So the number of fish, just so people know, we've mentioned it, but you're stocking 1 to 3 inch little fish.
Yes.
And when you say thousands of fish in each body of water, right? I mean that's what we're looking at. Yeah. Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands. Those rates are going to vary depending on the size of the reservoir and the need. But overall, like I said last year, and what we do, they're ranked in order of priority. And so based on our production, we start stocking at the number one priority and work our way down as availability. And if we have more than that, then we get to go back and try to reach the actual target rate. And so, of course, we were able to exceed that target rate on all of those reservoirs last year. So that was good news. But what we would expect would be roughly 3 years from stocking that we would see those fish make it into catchable size, that 10-plus inch size range.
That's what my next question was. You hit it right on the head. Next, see the fruits of our labor. You'll see that in roughly 3 years or so. You'll start seeing that increase. That's great. And I'm and then right now this past year, spring season crappie fishing, you're seeing fruits of 3 years ago. I mean, it's
certainly, it's a cycle. Since we're stocking those reservoirs, you should expect pretty consistent fisheries, depending on how their survival goes after stocking. But it should be more consistent, definitely more consistent than if we didn't stock.
Right, for sure.
Perfect. Yeah. So I mentioned spring, but that's the best time really to go after crappie, isn't it?
That most people are targeting crappie in the spring, right around that spawn when they come up in the shallows and they're easier to target. And it's easy then for bank anglers to target them as well in some places. And so that's when we see the majority of our effort for crappie. And of course they're feeding voraciously at that time, and so anglers typically are pulling them out one after the other, and that's a fish that people like to take home and eat. It's one of the more favored, and based on some of our numbers, probably crappie is probably our second most targeted species, and of course the spring is the most popular. But summertime can be good as well. But typically those fish are going to move out in a little bit deeper water, maybe not as easily accessible by bank anglers, but still, if you've got a boat, you've got some opportunities even in the summer months to target those fish.
Are you targeting like stake beds or attractors or things like that? Or are you points, or what do you?
Deeper water. They're looking for a little bit cooler water in the summer months, so they're going to be in deeper water somewhere in that maybe 15 to 25 foot depth, and that's going to depend on the thermocline, where the oxygen is at that depth. But seeking out cooler water, and yes, they're going to be associated with some type of structure. Whether it's natural or some stuff that our agency puts in, which we do a lot of habitat work on these reservoirs.
It's a whole other episode, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
Man, in the last couple of years, there's just been a ton of that kind of work going on.
A lot of it. And we're getting a lot of support from organizations outside of TWRA to assist with that. And of course, we have a map online that indicates all those stocking or habitat locations. Not all the habitat locations are marked though, but a lot of them are, and we're greatly increasing that amount of work. And it's a variety of techniques that are used, from natural to some artificial structures, but definitely trying to improve the amount of habitat out there. And it's good places to target.
Awesome. Yeah, so go check that out online, tmwildlife.org. The map is there. You can see where all those points of structure have been placed and things. So very cool. Got GPS locations on that. So real quick, recipe idea. What do you say for crappie? Just a good old fillet and drop in the fryer?
Well, I was wanting to come up with something different, and I found a recipe in an old book I had for crappie baked with shallots and mushrooms. But also you might consider using crappie in a ceviche, something a little more modern that folks may not be as familiar with. But with shallots and mushrooms, essentially you're going to bread those fillets, leave the skin on, bread those fillets and fry them in butter on both sides, but then saute some mushrooms in that butter and with some capers, and then put a layer of those mushrooms on a pan. You want to put your crappie fillets on top of that, and then you're going to sprinkle it with some breadcrumbs with tarragon, and you're going to saute some shallots and garlic and parsley in a pan, or chives in a pan, to pour over the top of those breadcrumbs and tarragon on the crappie, and bake for about 5 to 10 minutes at around 400 degrees.
Salivating.
Something a little different, but it's delicious.
I think it's time for lunch.
I think you had Todd at mushrooms. I saw his ears perk up. Our producer, he's got a big smile about those mushrooms.
Well, I appreciate this info. This has been great. Travis, just thanks for coming in. Thanks for to you guys out there watching and listening, and
thanks for the great work you're doing. Appreciate
Thank you all. Thanks for having me.
This is Tennessee Wildcast. Keep coming back, and we'll see you next time.
Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org, and follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. You can invest in Tennessee's wildlife future by purchasing a license at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com. That's GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.